Imagine an animal so fearless that it attacks lions, so tough that cobra venom barely slows it down, so intelligent that it can escape from virtually any enclosure humans design. An animal that weighs about 25 pounds but has absolutely zero concept of backing down from a fight. Now imagine that this animal exists. It's real. And it's been terrorizing everything from bees to buffaloes across Africa and Asia for millions of years. This is the honey badger. And everything you've heard about it is probably true. The honey badger really doesn't care. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why that's not just a meme. It's a survival strategy that's been refined over millions of years into something that looks a lot like insanity, but works better than you'd ever believe. Let's meet the toughest animal, pound for pound, that walks this earth. Picture the African savanna at dusk. The air is cooling down after another scorching day. Predators are waking up, getting ready for the night hunt. Lions yawn and stretch. Leopards slink down from trees. Hyenas gather in their clans. And then there's this thing. It's about the size of a medium dog, maybe 2 feet long, stocky, low to the ground. It has a distinctive look. Black body with a white or grey stripe running from the top of its head down its back, like it's wearing a cape, or like someone spilled bleach on it. It waddles more than walks, moving with this lumbering gait that makes it look almost comical. Almost. Because everything about the way this animal moves says one thing: I don't care who you are. This is a honey badger, and it's hungry. It's trotting through the grass, nose to the ground, following a scent. Its small eyes scan the area. Its rounded ears twitch, listening. And then it stops. There, coiled in the grass about 10 feet away, is a puff adder, one of Africa's deadliest snakes, highly venomous, responsible for more human deaths than almost any other African snake. When threatened, most animals run. Even lions give puff adders a wide berth. The honey badger sees it, pauses for maybe half a second, then charges straight at it. What happens next is over in seconds. The snake strikes. Its fangs pump venom directly into the honey badger's face, a dose that would kill a human. The honey badger barely flinches. It grabs the snake behind the head with its jaws and starts eating it, alive, while the snake is still thrashing. 5 minutes later, the honey badger has consumed most of the snake. Then something strange happens. It staggers, slows down. Its legs start to wobble. The venom is finally taking effect. The honey badger lies down, twitches a few times, and appears to go to sleep. Or maybe it's dying. Hard to tell. 2 hours later, it wakes up, shakes its head like it has a mild hangover, yawns, and continues eating the rest of the snake. Then it waddles off to find something else to fight. This isn't exaggeration. This isn't internet hype. This is documented behavior that scientists have observed and filmed repeatedly. The honey badger has built-in resistance to venom. Not immunity, resistance. Big difference. The venom still affects them, but their bodies can handle doses that would kill animals many times their size. Their blood contains natural antivenoms that neutralize toxins faster than they can spread. When they do get hit with a serious dose, like from a cobra or puff adder, they'll sometimes go into what looks like a temporary coma. Their metabolism slows down dramatically, giving their body time to process and neutralize the venom. Then they wake up and go right back to whatever they were doing. It's like having a built-in off switch for poison. But the venom resistance is just the beginning. Let's talk about that skin. Honey badger skin is thick, incredibly thick, about a 1/4 inch thick in some places, which might not sound like much until you realize that's thick enough to stop most predator bites from penetrating. Dog bites? Barely a scratch. Porcupine quills? Annoying but not dangerous. Even arrows struggle to pierce it. And here's the really wild part. The skin is loose. So loose that if a predator grabs a honey badger, the honey badger can literally twist around inside its own skin and bite back. Imagine grabbing someone's jacket, and they just rotate inside the jacket and punch you in the face. That's what honey badger skin does. Lions have been filmed biting honey badgers, only for the honey badger to twist around and claw the lion's face while still in its mouth. The lion usually drops it and backs off, clearly thinking, "This is not worth it." Leopards, the supreme ambush predators of Africa, have similar experiences. There's footage of a leopard catching a honey badger, carrying it up a tree to eat it in peace, standard leopard behavior, and the honey badger just fighting the whole time, clawing, biting, twisting. The leopard eventually gives up and drops it. The honey badger falls 30 feet, lands on the ground, shakes itself off, and walks away. No fear, no quit, just pure concentrated stubbornness wrapped in bulletproof skin. Now, let's talk about what they eat, because everything is not an exaggeration. Honey badgers are opportunistic carnivores, which is a fancy way of saying they'll eat absolutely anything they can catch, kill, or steal. And they can catch, kill, or steal almost anything. Snakes? Favorite food. They actively hunt cobras, puff adders, black mambas, some of the deadliest snakes on Earth. The venom resistance means snakes are just protein with a side of sleepiness. Scorpions? Delicious. The stingers don't penetrate their skin easily, and even when they do, honey badgers don't seem to care much. Porcupines? Challenging, but doable. They've figured out how to flip porcupines over and attack the unprotected belly. Some honey badgers have been found with porcupine quills embedded in their skin, and they're still hunting porcupines. But here's where it gets really interesting. Honey badgers hunt things much larger than themselves. There are documented cases of honey badgers killing young antelope, killing monitor lizards that outweigh them, raiding crocodile nests and eating the eggs, while the mother crocodile is nearby. They'll climb trees to raid bird nests and beehives. That's where the name comes from, by the way. They love honey. But more importantly, they love bee larvae, the protein-rich babies developing inside the hive. They'll endure thousands of bee stings to get to that food. Their thick skin protects them from most of the stings, and the ones that do get through, they just don't care. There's even a bird, the greater honey guide, that has evolved a relationship with honey badgers. The bird finds a beehive, then makes a specific call to attract honey badgers. The honey badger follows the bird to the hive, rips it apart with its powerful claws, eats its fill, and the bird gets the leftover wax and larvae. It's one of the few known examples of cooperation between wild birds and wild mammals. But wait, there's more. Honey badgers are also scavengers. They'll steal kills from other predators. Jackals, hyenas, even cheetahs have been chased off their own kills by honey badgers that just wander up and start eating. The other predators are bigger, stronger, faster, but the honey badger is crazier, and that apparently counts for a lot. There's a famous video of a honey badger walking straight into a pride of lions and stealing meat from them, not sneaking, walking. The lions look confused more than anything. Like, is this really happening? Is this thing really that stupid? The honey badger is not stupid. It just understands something the lions don't. It will fight harder and longer than anyone else is willing to fight for that meal. And eventually, everyone else gives up. It's the ultimate, I want it more than you do strategy. But here's what makes honey badgers truly special. They're not just tough. They're smart. Honey badgers have been documented using tools, something relatively rare in the animal kingdom. They'll pile up rocks or logs to climb out of enclosures. They'll use sticks to escape from cages. They've been seen digging under fences, figuring out how latches work, even working together to escape. There's a famous honey badger named Stoffel, who became an internet legend because he escaped from his enclosure at a wildlife rehabilitation center in South Africa over and over again. His caretakers kept building better enclosures, and Stoffel kept figuring out new ways to escape. He learned to pile up rocks to climb the walls. They removed the rocks. He started digging. They reinforced the ground. He figured out how to open the gate latch. They changed the latch. He found a weak point in the fence and bent it until he could squeeze through. Eventually, they realized Stoffel was studying the enclosure, watching, planning. He'd spend days just observing before making his move. That's not instinct. That's problem solving. That's intelligence. When they finally built an enclosure he couldn't escape from, Stoffel started escaping from other animals' enclosures and letting them out. Just for fun, apparently. Or maybe out of solidarity, hard to say. Honey badgers in the wild show similar intelligence. They remember where beehives are located and return to them seasonally. They learn which snakes are most dangerous and adjust their attack strategies accordingly. They've been observed teaching their young how to hunt specific prey, and they hold grudges. If a honey badger has a bad encounter with a human, say someone tries to trap it or chase it off, that honey badger will remember. It might come back to that person's property specifically to cause problems. Destroying crops, killing chickens, making noise at night. Revenge is a dish best served by a 25-pound ball of fury with no sense of self-preservation. So why are they like this? What evolutionary pressure creates an animal that attacks everything, fears nothing, and can't be killed by conventional means? The answer lies in their environment and their diet. Honey badgers evolved in Africa and parts of Asia, regions with some of the most dangerous predators on Earth. Lions, leopards, hyenas, wild dogs, crocodiles, everything wants to eat you. The usual strategy for small animals is to hide, run fast, or reproduce quickly to make up for high mortality. Honey badgers went a different route. They became too annoying to eat. That thick, loose skin makes them hard to kill and even harder to hold. The venom resistance lets them eat food sources other animals avoid. The fearless aggression makes predators decide the meal isn't worth the fight. And it works. Adult honey badgers have very few natural predators. Lions occasionally kill them, but even lions usually leave them alone. The energy expenditure and risk of injury isn't worth it for such a small amount of meat. Honey badgers don't need to be big. They don't need to be fast. They just need to be more trouble than they're worth. And they've perfected that strategy over millions of years. Humans and honey badgers have a complicated relationship. It goes back thousands of years, and it's never been simple. In many African cultures, the honey badger holds a special place in folklore and traditional beliefs. Not always a good place, mind you, but definitely special. Some Sand peoples of southern Africa tell stories of the honey badger as a trickster figure, clever, fearless, and impossible to control. In their tales, the honey badger outsmarts larger animals through cunning and sheer boldness. It's portrayed as a creature that doesn't respect the natural order, that refuses to know its place, which, if you've been paying attention, is pretty accurate. In other cultures, honey badgers are associated with witchcraft and dark magic. There are beliefs that witches keep honey badgers as familiars, using them to carry out mischief or revenge. Given the honey badger's habit of raiding villages, destroying property, and generally causing chaos, you can see how these stories started. Some traditional healers across Africa have used honey badger parts in medicine for centuries. The skin, they believed, could transfer the animal's toughness to whoever wore it. Warriors sometimes carried honey badger skin as a talisman, hoping it would make them brave in battle. The fat was used in treatments for various ailments, and the claws were kept as charms against evil spirits. We don't have scientific evidence that any of this works, obviously. But the consistent theme across cultures is clear. People recognized that honey badgers possessed something special, something that set them apart from other animals. The scientific study of honey badgers is surprisingly recent. European colonizers and explorers in Africa wrote about them starting in the 1700s. Usually with a mix of fascination and frustration. Early naturalists described them as fearless to the point of stupidity and impossible to keep in captivity. The formal scientific name, Mellivora capensis, comes from Latin and means honey eater from the Cape. It was first described scientifically in 1776, the same year as the American Revolution. The timing is kind of perfect, actually. America declares independence, and simultaneously, science officially recognizes the existence of an animal that refuses to be governed by normal rules. But for a long time, honey badgers were just considered a nuisance. Farmers hated them because they killed chickens and raided beehives. Ranchers hated them because they could slip through or under almost any fence. They were trapped, shot, poisoned, and they kept coming back. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that scientists really started studying honey badger behavior in depth. And what they found was startling. In the 1970s and 80s, researchers in South Africa's Kalahari Desert began long-term studies of wild honey badgers, tracking them with radio collars and observing their behavior. They discovered that honey badgers have enormous home ranges, up to 200 square miles for a single animal. That's massive for an animal their size. They're largely solitary, except during mating season. Males and females come together briefly mate, and then go their separate ways. The female raises the cubs alone, teaching them how to hunt, how to find food, and presumably how to not give a damn about anything. Cubs stay with their mothers for about a year, learning the ropes. And what they learn is fascinating. Different populations of honey badgers have different specializations. Some focus more on hunting snakes. Others specialize in raiding beehives. Some are expert diggers who hunt burrowing prey. This suggests cultural transmission of knowledge. Young honey badgers learning specific techniques from their mothers and refining them over time. That's a sign of sophisticated intelligence. Now, let's address the question you're probably wondering. Can you eat honey badger? Technically, yes. Historically, some people have. But here's the thing, almost nobody wants to. First, there's the practical problem of actually catching one. Honey badgers are dangerous. They fight back viciously. Even if you manage to kill one, you're probably going to get injured in the process, bitten, clawed, or worse. Second, the meat reportedly doesn't taste good. Most accounts describe it as tough, stringy, and having a strong, unpleasant flavor. Honey badgers eat a lot of carrion and have scent glands that produce a foul-smelling musk, and apparently that comes through in the meat. Third, and perhaps most importantly, honey badgers are protected in many regions now. They're not endangered globally, but their populations are declining in some areas due to habitat loss and human conflict. Killing them is illegal in many countries without special permits. But the bigger issue is cultural. In most places where honey badgers live, people have learned that they're more valuable alive than dead. Not because they're cuddly or friendly, they're neither, but because they serve important ecological roles. Honey badgers are one of the primary predators of venomous snakes in their ecosystems. They keep snake populations in check, which benefits humans living in those areas. They also help control rodent populations and clean up carrion that could otherwise spread disease. Plus, there's a growing appreciation for them as, well, entertainment. Wildlife tourism brings money into local economies, and honey badgers, with their fearless antics and dramatic confrontations, are surprisingly popular with visitors. People want to see the crazy animal that fights cobras. They want to witness the creature that steals from lions. Honey badgers alive and thriving are worth more than honey badgers on a dinner plate. The modern internet age has been very good to the honey badger's reputation. In 2011, a YouTube video called "The Crazy Nasty Ass Honey Badger" went viral. It featured nature footage of honey badgers doing honey badger things, fighting snakes, raiding beehives, stealing kills, with a humorous narration. The catchphrase, "Honey badger don't care," became a meme that spread across the internet. Suddenly, millions of people who had never heard of honey badgers were sharing videos and facts about them. The meme was funny, but it was also based on truth. Honey badgers really don't seem to care about size differences, danger, or consequences. This viral fame actually helped honey badgers. It raised awareness about the species and contributed to conservation efforts. People who became fans of the crazy honey badger started caring about whether they survived in the wild. Wildlife rehabilitation centers that care for orphaned or injured honey badgers saw increased donations. Educational programs about African wildlife started including honey badgers more prominently. Even scientific research got a boost. The increased public interest made it easier to get funding for honey badger studies, all because of a meme. Sometimes the internet does good things. Let's talk about some specific honey badgers that have become famous or infamous over the years. We mentioned Stoffel earlier, the escape artist from South Africa. But Stoffel's story deserves more detail because it perfectly illustrates honey badger intelligence and determination. Stoffel lived at the Maholoholo Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. He'd been raised there since he was a cub and couldn't be released into the wild because he was too habituated to humans. So the center built him an enclosure. He escaped. They built a better enclosure with higher walls. He piled up rocks and climbed out. They removed all the rocks and anything else he could stack. He started digging tunnels under the walls, deep tunnels with chambers, engineering-level tunnels. They reinforced the ground with concrete and mesh. He figured out that if he could open the gate to the female honey badger's enclosure next door, she would come into his enclosure. Then he could use her as a ladder to climb the wall. Yes, really. He used another honey badger as a stepladder. They separated them more securely. He found a rake that a keeper had accidentally left near his enclosure. He dragged it to the wall and used it to climb out. They made sure no tools were ever left near him. He started working on the gate latch. Over the course of weeks, he studied it, watched how it worked when keepers opened it. One day, he figured it out and opened the gate. At this point, his keepers were both frustrated and impressed. Every time they thought they'd finally contained him, Stoffel would find a new solution. They started filming his escape attempts because they were so elaborate and clever. Eventually, they built him an enclosure he couldn't escape from, but only by basically building a prison. Smooth walls too high to climb, no objects inside that could be used as tools or ladders, reinforced everything. Stoffel now spends his time testing the limits of that enclosure. His keepers say he's always watching, always thinking, always looking for the weakness they might have missed. He's been trying to escape for over a decade, and he's never given up. That's not just stubbornness. That's intelligence combined with absolutely unbreakable determination. Another famous honey badger is BGP, short for Bad Guy Patrol, a wild honey badger that terrorized a South African military base for months in the 1980s. BGP apparently decided that the base was his territory and that the soldiers stationed there were intruders. He would raid the mess hall, stealing food. He would enter barracks at night, terrifying sleeping soldiers. He would attack anyone who got too close, which was everyone, because he would approach them. The soldiers tried everything to get rid of him. They tried scaring him away with loud noises. Didn't work. They tried blocking his entry points. He made new ones. They tried setting up barriers. He went around them, over them, or through them. One soldier reportedly shot at BGP with a rifle and missed. BGP charged at him. The soldier ran and locked himself in a building. BGP clawed at the door for 20 minutes before leaving. Eventually, BGP just became part of life on the base. Soldiers learned to give him space and accept that he owned the place. He'd show up, take what he wanted, and leave. Fighting him was pointless. After several months, BGP disappeared, presumably moving on to terrorize someone else. The soldiers threw a party celebrating his departure, but they also told stories about him for years afterward, with a mix of relief and grudging respect. That's the honey badger effect. Even when they're gone, people remember them. In recent years, honey badgers have faced new challenges that their fearlessness can't solve. Habitat loss is a big one. As human populations grow and agricultural land expands, honey badger territories shrink. They're adaptable, but they need large ranges to find enough food. Human-wildlife conflict is increasing. Honey badgers raid chicken coops and beehives, which makes them enemies of farmers. In some areas, they're killed as pests. Poison is particularly devastating because honey badgers will eat poisoned carcasses meant for other animals. Road mortality is also a problem. Honey badgers don't have the instinct to avoid cars because cars are a recent development. A honey badger encountering a vehicle on a road will often stand its ground or even charge at it. Against a car, fearlessness is a fatal flaw. Climate change is beginning to affect them too. Shifts in rainfall patterns affect the availability of prey. Longer droughts mean fewer water sources, which honey badgers need despite their toughness. Conservation organizations are working to protect them, but it's challenging because honey badgers are difficult to study. They're nocturnal, solitary, and range over huge areas. Tracking them requires significant resources. But there's hope. Public awareness is higher than it's ever been, thanks in part to internet fame. Protected areas and wildlife corridors are being established. Research is ongoing. And honey badgers themselves are survivors. They've been around for millions of years. They've survived ice ages, climate shifts, and the rise of human civilization. If any animal can adapt to the challenges ahead, it's the one that already doesn't care about the rules. Let's get philosophical for a moment, because the honey badger raises a really interesting question. Why does fearlessness work? In nature, fear is usually a good thing. Fear keeps you alive. Fear makes you avoid predators, respect dangerous situations, and think before acting. Animals that aren't afraid of the right things tend to die young. But the honey badger has somehow turned that equation upside down. Its fearlessness is its survival strategy. And the crazy part is, it works better than you'd think it should. Here's why. In the animal kingdom, most conflicts are about cost-benefit analysis. Is this food worth the energy to get it? Is this fight worth the risk of injury? Predators constantly make these calculations. If prey fights back hard enough, most predators will back off and find easier targets. The honey badger takes this to an extreme. It makes every interaction so costly for the other animal that they give up. It doesn't matter if you're bigger, stronger, or better armed. The honey badger will fight so viciously and so relentlessly that winning isn't worth it. It's basically saying, you might beat me eventually, but I guarantee you'll get hurt doing it, and I guarantee I will never stop fighting. So ask yourself, is this really worth it? Most animals decide it's not. This strategy only works because of the honey badger's physical adaptations. The thick skin means most attacks don't do serious damage. The venom resistance means venomous bites are temporary setbacks, not death sentences. The powerful jaws and claws mean they can hurt you back. But it also requires a mindset. The honey badger cannot hesitate. It cannot show weakness. It cannot back down, because the entire strategy depends on the other animal believing that the honey badger will fight forever. And somehow, through millions of years of evolution, honey badgers have developed exactly that mindset. They don't back down, ever, even when backing down would be the smart play. It's insane. And it works. From an ecological perspective, honey badgers play a crucial role in their ecosystems, even though they're not the biggest or most numerous predators. As we mentioned, they're one of the primary controllers of venomous snake populations. In areas where honey badger populations are healthy, snake numbers stay in check. When honey badger populations decline, snake populations can explode, which affects everything else in the ecosystem. They're also important for controlling rodent and insect populations. They dig up termite mounds, wasp nests, and rodent burrows, consuming huge numbers of these animals and helping maintain balance. Their digging behavior has another ecological benefit. It aerates soil and helps distribute seeds. When honey badgers dig up burrows or nests, they disturb the ground in ways that benefit plant growth. They're not trying to help plants, obviously, but the effect is there nonetheless. And their fearless scavenging helps clean up carcasses that might otherwise spread disease. They'll eat carrion that's too far gone for most other scavengers, effectively removing potential sources of infection from the environment. In some ecosystems, honey badgers are what's called a keystone species, a species whose impact on the ecosystem is disproportionately large compared to their abundance. Remove honey badgers, and you see cascading effects throughout the food web. That's why conservation efforts matter, even though individual honey badgers might be destructive pests from a human perspective. The ecosystem needs them. Let's talk about what studying honey badgers has taught scientists about animal behavior and cognition. Honey badgers have challenged some assumptions about the relationship between brain size and intelligence. They don't have particularly large brains relative to their body size, but they demonstrate problem-solving abilities, tool use, and planning that rival much larger animals. This suggests that intelligence isn't just about brain size, it's about brain structure and how efficiently that brain processes information. Honey badgers seem to have very efficient brains for their size. Their fearlessness has also taught us about the neuroscience of fear. Most animals have strong fear responses hardwired into their brains. Certain stimuli, like the silhouette of a predator or the smell of blood, trigger automatic fear reactions. Honey badgers appear to have either dampened fear responses or the ability to override them completely. Scientists are studying this because understanding how fear works or doesn't work in honey badgers could have implications for treating fear-related disorders in humans. Imagine if we could help people with PTSD or phobias by understanding how the honey badger's brain processes threats. Obviously, we don't want people to be reckless. But there might be insights there about managing fear responses when they become overwhelming. Their venom resistance is also being studied extensively. Researchers are trying to isolate the specific proteins and mechanisms that allow honey badgers to survive snake venom. If we can understand and replicate this, we could potentially develop better antivenoms for humans. Current antivenoms are expensive, require refrigeration, and are species-specific. A honey badger-inspired universal antivenom that works on multiple snake species and doesn't need refrigeration could save thousands of lives in remote areas where venomous snakes are common but medical care is limited. The loose skin has inspired materials science research. Engineers are trying to create flexible armor that works on similar principles, protective material that's tough but allows freedom of movement. This could have applications in everything from athletic protective gear to military armor. Even the honey badger's fearless aggression has military applications being studied. Understanding what makes an animal fight so relentlessly could inform training programs or help develop better strategies for dealing with hostile situations. So this weird, aggressive, fearless ball of muscle and rage is actually contributing to science in multiple fields. Who would have thought? Here's something that doesn't get talked about much. Honey badgers are kind of lonely. They're solitary by nature. Males and females only meet up briefly to mate. Mothers raise cubs alone. Once those cubs reach maturity, they go off on their own and likely never see their mother or siblings again. A honey badger might patrol a territory of 200 square miles and encounter another honey badger only a handful of times per year. The rest of the time, it's alone. For such an intelligent animal, that's kind of sad. They have the cognitive capacity for relationships, for learning from others, for social bonds. But their survival strategy doesn't allow for it. Being fearless means never backing down, never showing weakness, never compromising. Those traits make it very hard to form cooperative relationships, even with their own species. So, honey badgers live alone, fight alone, survive alone. There's something tragically independent about that. They're so tough that they don't need anyone else. But maybe, on some level that we can't access, there's a cost to that independence that we don't see. Or maybe I'm projecting human emotions onto an animal that genuinely doesn't care about social connection. Maybe honey badgers are perfectly content being solitary badasses who don't need anyone. Either way, it's worth thinking about. So, what can we learn from the honey badger? On one level, the lessons are obvious. Be tough, don't back down, fight for what you want. Those are the surface-level takeaways that turned honey badger don't care into a motivational meme. But there are deeper lessons too. The honey badger teaches us that success doesn't always come from being the biggest or the strongest. Sometimes it comes from being the most determined, the most adaptable, the most willing to endure. It teaches us that fear can be a prison. Yes, fear keeps us safe. But sometimes we avoid things not because they're actually dangerous, but because we're afraid of being uncomfortable. The honey badger reminds us that discomfort, even pain, can be temporary and survivable. It teaches us that reputation matters. The honey badger's fearlessness is well known throughout its ecosystem. Other animals avoid conflict with them, not because honey badgers always win, but because everyone knows honey badgers always fight. That reputation does half the work before the fight even starts. And maybe most importantly, the honey badger teaches us that the rules aren't as fixed as we think. Every other medium-sized predator follows certain rules. Avoid bigger predators, respect venomous creatures, don't waste energy on fights you can't win. The honey badger looked at those rules and said, "No thanks." And it works. It shouldn't work, but it does. Sometimes the most successful strategy is the one nobody else is willing to try. The honey badger has been around for about 20 million years. It survived ice ages, continental drift, the rise and fall of countless other species. It's outlasted saber-toothed cats and woolly mammoths and dire wolves. And it's done all that while being small, solitary, and spectacularly bad at playing it safe. Right now, somewhere in Africa or Asia, a honey badger is doing something inadvisable. fighting something bigger, eating something venomous, escaping from somewhere humans tried to contain it. And it doesn't care what you think about that. It doesn't care what anyone thinks. It never has, and it never will. The honey badger. 25 pounds of absolute zero chill. A masterclass in fearlessness. A reminder that toughness isn't always about size. It's about refusal to quit. One of the most relentlessly, absurdly, gloriously badass creatures ever to walk this earth. And honestly, we could all stand to be a little more honey badger. Not all the time, not about everything, but when it matters. When something is worth fighting for, channel that energy, that determination, that complete unwillingness to back down. Be the honey badger of whatever you're trying to accomplish, because the honey badger doesn't care about the odds. It doesn't care about conventional wisdom. It doesn't care about what should or shouldn't be possible. It just keeps going, and somehow, against all logic and reason, it wins. If you enjoyed learning about nature's most fearless creature, hit that subscribe button. We've got more incredible animals coming, from the fastest hunters to the smartest survivors, to the weirdest creatures you've never heard of. Drop a comment and let me know what animal you want to see next. I read every single one. Thanks for watching.